Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well out there. I am trying to fix some live streams at the moment because there was some sort of issue with YouTube, and then now it seems like it's streaming but not streaming. So if you can see me, let me know. Not streaming. So if you sorry about that. Let's see if I can. Trying to let people know. Trying to let people know to switch to the other one. Hope you're showing up. If anybody's seeing this, let me know. Let me know. Yeah, it was very weird. It like acted like it was connected, and then it wasn't connected, and then the one that everyone was waiting for was not connected. Okay, I'm gonna get started. Hopefully this works. Oh my God, someone even got a YouTube notification. That's a first. Welcome, everybody. I have got a lot to cover today. I also have a very interesting, fun, unique segment I'm going to do later in the show, which I'll mention in just a second. But I'm going to cover Ghislaine Maxwell's unbelievable testimony. You will not believe what Ghislaine Maxwell said about Donald Trump. It is just mind-blowing. All the things she revealed in her multiple days of testimony to the Justice Department. We now have the papers. We have the transcripts. Also, Donald Trump's black shirts, his Gestapo continue to raid cities across America, destroying lives, both documented and undocumented lives. Because I'll tell you what, if you're a documented immigrant, but you don't look like a regular white guy and you're walking down the street, your life is not okay right now. It's still difficult, still sucks, still scary. And you actually don't know that just because you have the Das Papen, whatever the German is, whatever, just because you have the papers doesn't mean they're going to leave you alone. I'm also going to talk about Kilmar Abrego Garcia was apprehended yet again. We got some of that, a little bit on Israel. But then, after all of the topics you would expect me to cover today, I'm going to do something I don't do much, which I'm going to dig into what's going on in the comedy world, because two reasons. One is because it does have to do with politics. It does have to do with cultural commentary. It is a debate that's ongoing in some of the biggest, most watched, most listened to podcasts and video streams in the American comedy world. There's a debate ongoing about, standing for right-wing issues, standing for left-wing issues. So I'm going to get into that, but for the reason that is kind of what I often talk about is those issues. But on top of it, I'm gonna dig into it because I used to know all of these guys. Like everyone involved, I have had, some sort of connection with, been on shows with in the past. And so I feel like I have a bit of a unique understanding, a unique connection to the blow up that is happening right now in the comedy world, the Rogan sphere, as they say, the Mark Maron world, whatever you want to call them. And I feel like you'll get a unique view on all those things from me, because there aren't many folks out there that actually have personally known all of the folks involved in this. So I'm going to get into that coming up. All right, let's do it though. Let's do it. Ghislaine Maxwell. And don't worry, I'm also going to tell you what the New York Times is not telling you about this, as I generally do. But I read, a chunk, I think about an hour. I'll give you a time frame. I read about an hour of the transcripts, 2 or 3 days of transcripts of interviews with Ghislaine Maxwell that reveal everything she knows about Epstein and about what went down. And from both what I read and the other summaries I've read, apparently she knows nothing about Epstein. She has no idea. Who would have thunk? She doesn't know that Trump did anything. She doesn't know that Bill Clinton did anything. She doesn't know that anyone did a thing. There's nothing she knows. And really, that poor lady has had her name dragged through the mud despite the fact that she knows nothing and that Epstein probably was doing nothing wrong. So the New York Times did the 5 takeaways. And of course, New York Times is in a unique position because they're doing the liberal cover of this story, which is, Epstein had no connection to Bill Clinton or nothing that bad, nothing that we should have covered 5-10 years ago. No, not at all. But at the same time, they want to get Donald Trump. So they're covering this story because they're like, yeah, but what about Epstein and Donald Trump? Anyway, here are some of the takeaways. Maxwell praised Trump and distanced him from Epstein. This is a guy who was like besties with Epstein. There are an endless array of photos of Trump with Epstein. And something else you have to realize is you got Donald Trump and Bill Clinton and many others. What do you think their dance card is like? What do you think their schedule is like? Who do you think they cram out, carve out time in their schedule to spend time with? It is very important people or people that can get them laid. Those are the two which they would put on the list of very important. Those are the two things. Get them laid secretly with children. Those are the two things that they would make time for. Bill Clinton's not, he's flying 26 times on a plane with a dude just cuz. That's what Maxwell wants you to believe. Just cuz they were friendly. Why not? This the president of the United States and then former president of the United States carves out time for 26 flights on this guy's jet. 4 of them, I think, was it 4 that he turned away his Secret Service, which are always with him, but he needed time away from them. And she just wants you to believe, nothing significant happens. Yeah. No. Maxwell says, I've never recruited a masseuse. So one of the big connections to Trump with Epstein is that Virginia Giuffre was scouted, I guess, at Mar-a-Lago. So she was working at Mar-a-Lago at age 16, and she was scouted by Epstein or Maxwell and basically hired away from Mar-a-Lago and then tricked or trapped into being sex trafficked. And she, publicly accused Prince Andrew and was in, court cases against Prince Andrew, and then was hit by a bus and then was suicided just a few months ago. It's all coincidence. She getting hit by a bus and taking her own life after tweeting out that she would not take her own life. And if someone says she's committing suicide, then it's not true and that she was murdered. But all of that's just a coincidence. And yes, she totally took her own life. As the New York Times clearly says, Mr. Frey died by suicide. So Maxwell said in her testimony, I'd never recruited a masseuse from Mar-a-Lago. Never once. And she said, Giuffre said she was passed around like a platter of fruit to people, including Prince Andrew. And then she died by suicide. Let's see. Maxwell said, I never witnessed the president in any inappropriate setting in any way. The president was never inappropriate with anybody. In the times that I was with him, he was a gentleman in all respects. So not only is Maxwell got to be lying about everything she knows about Epstein, and at one point that New York Times doesn't mention, she's asked about millions of dollars. I believe it was tens of millions of dollars put into her account by Epstein. And she says, I don't know. I don't know what that was for. Maybe it was another account that just had my name on it. So think about her motivation here. Her motivation is to get pardoned. Her motivation is to get moved to minimum security, which Trump can do for her. Do you think there's any reason in the world she would have to tell the truth if she knew something about Donald Trump? And by the way, Trump's former biographer, who Trump now hates, says he personally saw photos of Trump with little girls or young girls that he thought appeared under 18. And those photos were presented to him by Epstein when Epstein was alive. But yeah. Hello, everybody in the chat. Thank you for saying hello. And I'm sorry for the confusion over the initial live stream. Does suck when these things happen. Seems like most folks have figured it out, I hope. I'll post it one more. I'll post the new link one more time for folks. Anyway, yes, someone in the chat is mentioning she's already in minimum security. Trump has already moved her to minimum security. I'm sure if he had said bad things about, if she'd said bad things about Trump, maybe she'd be going back to maximum security. Maxwell did say during the testimony she does not believe that Epstein killed himself. However, even in that, she gives cover to these ruling elite who likely had Epstein killed by saying she does not believe anyone outside of the prison killed him. She thinks it was an internal matter, meaning she thinks he was probably killed by a cellmate because they were arguing over a toothbrush, or someone took a really smelly dump in the toilet in the cell, and, that's executable offense. She's given cover for everything. She never said she did anything. She hired masseuses. That was all. Just an endless array of masseuses. Do you have any idea how many fucking masseuses you need if you're Jeffrey Epstein? It's so laughable. So laughable. So Blanche, who's the working for the Justice Department, but he's working for Trump's Justice Department, right? So he wants to do what Trump wants. Blanche asked many more questions about Epstein's relationship with former President Bill Clinton, than he did about Epstein's relationship with Trump. In the end, Maxwell denied that either had engaged in sexual misconduct or other inappropriate behavior, and said neither had visited Epstein's private islands, which is the only place you could possibly have these young girls is at the private island. Couldn't have happened at the 12 other properties that Epstein had with video cameras rigged up. No, of course not. And also, we know Epstein was prosecuted twice, or being prosecuted the second time, twice for trafficking underage girls and trafficking of prostitution. The first time he was convicted was in 2008. He was given that sweetheart deal where he only had to go to prison like a few hours a day. The rest of the day he could go do whatever he wanted in his office. The part-time prison. You never been convicted of part-time prison? Part-time prison's pretty rough. But so it's not, so how can Maxwell deny that like all this was happening when he was fucking convicted for it? Like Epstein was convicted for it. The other motivation, which of course Ghislaine Maxwell has, is not to be murdered. She knows these people can have her murdered. She knows it. It's been done. So what is she going to say? Of course she's going to say, nothing bad ever happened. I never met a girl. In fact, I've never met a female of any kind. Never, not a one. She then goes on to talk about some of the famous people that Epstein knew and spent time with. She said, quote, speaking to Trump's Justice Department, she said, some are in your cabinet, meaning Trump's cabinet, who you value as co-workers, she said. She didn't make clear who she meant, but at another point, she said Robert F. Kennedy, the health secretary, once joined Mr. Epstein on a trip to hunt for dinosaur bones in the Dakotas. She added that there was no way that Epstein's associates would be with him if he was a creep or because they wanted sexual favors. But of course, and I'm not saying this about RFK, who knows about RFK, but the ones who spent a lot of time with Epstein for some unknown reason, really, they just, these people who have the Rolodex of everybody in the world. Like Bill Gates has the Rolodex of everybody in the world. They're all going to answer his phone call. Everybody in the world. And he just wants to spend time, or not just, but one of the people he's carving out time for is a financier who has a mystery profession, who claims to be a billionaire, but nobody seems to understand where his money's coming from, who just comes off as kind of creepy. If you've ever seen an interview with Jeffrey Epstein, just kind of creepy, kind of sleazy, and people just want to spend loads of time with him. Now, I'm not saying everybody who ever had dinner with Epstein was involved in this. Katie Couric had dinner with Epstein. She was at a dinner with many other people, and she said he seemed kind of creepy, and his place seemed kind of creepy. A lot of paintings and statues of naked women, and I think it's likely that's the only contact Katie Couric had with him. But the others, so Maxwell discussed. Oh yeah, so they spent a lot more time on Bill Clinton than Trump. Anytime it came, they would ask about Trump, they'd quickly move on. Like, oh no, nothing bad happened. Okay, let's move on. Which is their job, right? Their job is to get her to say Trump didn't do anything wrong and move on past him. Let's see. At one point, she named the celebrities, businessmen, and politicians, or some of them, that she knew well or she knew were friends of Epstein. She said Elon Musk, Andrew Cuomo, John Kerry, Edward Kennedy, that's Ted Kennedy, Sarah Ferguson, Naomi Campbell, Alan Dershowitz, Kevin Spacey, Larry Summers. Larry Summers, former head of Harvard, former Obama White House. What was he in the Treasury? Anyway, and she said they were simply friends or had business relationships with her or Epstein. But some of those people we know are kind of creeps, like Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey was Me Too'd into oblivion and just liked hanging out with Epstein. Mrs. Maxwell also said Mr. Epstein had been close to Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel. He's often listed when people list people who spent a lot of time with Epstein. But under further questioning, she said she remembered little of their encounters or why he had been close with Epstein. Who knows? Who knows what was going on that she was managing at all of his properties? Maxwell denied working with any intelligence agencies. One of the conspiracy theories around Epstein is that he was the unfounded accusation, this is New York Times being New York Times, the unfounded accusation that the sex trafficking was a means to collect blackmail material on his powerful and influential associates, and especially that conspiracy points to CIA, points to Mossad heavily. Ms. Maxwell emphatically denied most of those accusations, but said she had no knowledge of others. In one particularly noteworthy exchange, Mr. Blanche asked if she had ever had contact with a Mossad agent. She said, well, not deliberately. Pardon me, Mr. Blanche asked. She repeated, not deliberately. Mr. Blanche then moved on. Didn't ask further what she meant. Didn't ask further what Mossad agent. Didn't ask further who she thought was a Mossad agent. Her father was likely connected to Mossad, may have been killed by Mossad as well. He was given a royal funeral in Israel, and her father was a media magnate who died mysteriously out on his yacht. But he was likely had connections to Mossad. He clearly had heavy connections to Israel, and he was likely pivotal in crushing the stories that Israel had a nuclear bomb, which back in the 80s was not well known. Now it's very well known that they have nuclear bombs, but at the time they were very intent on making sure no one knew they had nuclear bombs, because that would mean they'd have to be inspected, and they didn't want that. So they worked very hard to crush that story, and Maxwell's father was pivotal in crushing that story in the British press. Okay, I'm going to move on. I mean, you could sum up all of that to say that big shocker, the Justice Department goes to talk with Ghislaine Maxwell for the first time outside of her trial, and she basically says she knows nothing. Trump's a wonderful human being. Even Bill Clinton never did anything untoward. I think, and part of it is not only could these people have her killed, for one thing, but part of it is that she knows that if she were to just go at, like, let's say to get in good graces with Trump, she goes all in on Bill Clinton and says, oh yeah, he was totally sleeping with these girls. Well, then she would be admitting to the entire business that she's been denying the whole time. So she can't say any of these people were sleeping with or If you are being sex trafficked, then it's not sleeping with, it's rape. But she can't admit it to any of it because it would unravel her whole story. So, of course, they're all wonderful people. Alan Dershowitz, just a charm of a human being. So I'm sure he wasn't up to any bad. I'm sure he didn't do anything disgusting and immoral. I mean, if you just see, 8 seconds of an interview with Alan Dershowitz as he defends genocide in Israel, genocide by Israel and Gaza, you go, well, I can see why all these rich and powerful people like Epstein wanted to spend a lot of time with Dershowitz. I can totally see why. What a charming and attractive man. All right, folks. For those of you who don't know, I have a bunch more stories coming up, but I said later in the show, I am going to do a little bit of a deep dive, playing a bunch of clips, showing you the explosion that's happened in the comedy community between Mark Maron, Joe Rogan, the Rogan Sphere, etc. Both because I think there's some interesting points to be made about what comedy is, what it's doing, what it has done, where it's gone wrong in the United States. I guess these are all American comics. But also because I am a comedian. I have spent 25 years performing stand-up comedy, hosting comedy shows. And on top of that, I know almost all these guys. Not now. They don't speak to me now. But I did have many years of knowing all the people involved pretty much. So I'll be getting into that a little later. It's unique in that it's not normally what I do, but I think I have a unique insight into it. Okay. Back into, and please click thumbs up, click share, throw in a comment. Why not? The comment's appearing on the screen right now, and so you get all your shit on the screen. I mean, it'll be shown for posterity. 1,000 years from now, someone will be watching this video as they go through all my videos because they'll still be prevalent and important and relevant 1,000 years from now, and they'll see your comments. So why would you not leave a comment? Like, just fucking do it. Also, you should join up at leecamp.net, the locals page, because that's where all the cool kids hang out, and you get tons of awesome extra content, such as my full interview with Chris Smalls that just came out. Anyway, let's keep going. Trump signs executive orders aimed at ending cashless bail in D.C. and across the nation. Cashless bail, for those who don't know, Trump is just trying to make the country as fascist as possible, as take away as many freedoms as possible, imprison people for as long as possible. And for those who don't know, cash bail, for-profit cash bail, exists in 2 countries. It's illegal. For-profit cash bail, as in bail bondsmen and all that shit, is illegal in every country except the United States and Philippines, because it is so immoral and disgusting to say, we're going to hold you unless you give us money. It's like, is the person guilty and can't be out on the streets or not? Because that's what you need to decide. Whether the person has money to give you should not matter. And money to give a bail bondsman should not matter. And in almost every country in the world, it does not matter. Now, if you look up cash bail and you take out the for-profit part, there are other countries with some cash bail, versions. Like in Germany and Canada, if you commit a certain level of crime where they want to make sure you come back for trial and you don't flee, you can kind of as collateral, you can give them cash. So cash bail to some extent exists in a few other countries, but for-profit cash bail exists in exactly 2 countries. So Trump is upset that there's any states, DC is not a state, but whatever, any localities in the United States that don't have this incredibly immoral, disgusting thing. He's very upset. He's like, how dare they not be immoral and disgusting and keep everybody in prison if they're too poor to pay? This is also hilarious because this is something that he takes advantage of, right? Every time Trump's been arrested or in court, he can use his money to get out of it in one way or another. He's had 1,000 or more trials or cases or prosecutions, most of them for not paying people. He'll hire, many of them before, prior to being president, hire people to do work and not pay them. And then they take him to court. He doesn't actually show up to court. He sends his lawyers to fight it. And he can get out of all of it by pay for expensive lawyers, pay for expensive, people to do research, pay settlements, pay expensive settlements. If he thinks he's going to lose, he can pay them off that way. This is basically the rich get out of our justice system and the poor don't. But on top of that, many people are arrested for things they didn't do or for things that shouldn't even be crimes, like loitering or smoking a cigarette. I just played the video the other day of the guy being harassed by law enforcement, meaning jackboot thugs in DC, for smoking on his own stoop. And would Trump get arrested for smoking on his own stoop? No, because this is something that's done to poor people or non-white people. And I say or because rich people who are not white get pulled over a lot too. Chris Rock, who lives in, at least used to or still does, lives in an expensive neighborhood in, I think, Connecticut. He said he's gotten pulled over, like, one of them he filmed. He's gotten pulled over like 3 or 4 times in his own neighborhood. The cops just pull him over because he's black in a neighborhood that is almost entirely white. And so just driving while black gets him pulled over. It is a completely different system. And Trump's trying to get rid of, or trying to actually force cash bail systems onto the few parts of the country that don't have it. So he did that. And really, tell me which one of these headlines doesn't sound like The Onion coming up. How about this one? ICE is aiming to spend millions of your taxpayer dollars to make their vehicles gold. Literally gold. Decked out in gold. I'm not kidding. This isn't The Onion. Literally millions of your tax dollars going to golden ICE vehicles. ICE is seeking to spend millions of dollars on SUVs and custom gold detailed vehicle wraps emblazoned with the words "Defend the Homeland," according to contractors' social media posts, and records that describe the decked out fleet as urgently needed in President Donald Trump's stated mission to improve safety on the streets of D.C. Government contracting documents made public this week show the agency proposed paying 4 companies $2.4 million to cover their vehicles in gold and gold writing. In the documents pertaining to the 3 vehicle wrapping companies, the agency describes the need for the golden wraps as urgent and essential to the officers to provide support and a law enforcement presence in D.C. Urgent. Please wrap our vehicles in gold. Holy shit. It is ancient Rome. Could this be ancient Rome anymore? Literally sitting there wrapping shit in gold and going, we got to get the immigrants. We got to and go to war with everybody. Send the battleships out to Venezuela. Send commandos into Mexico. Send them into streets of Chicago and D.C. and New York and Los Angeles. This is ancient. It's actually ancient Rome mixed with Nazi Germany. It's it's a little flavor each, a little sprinkling of each. Tough to know. Here's a question for the chatters. Thank you for being here, chatters. You make a difference. You are important, and you are much loved. Here's a question for the chatters. Whether you're watching this live or not live, you can still post a comment. At what point, what's the sign you got to get the fuck out of a country? What's the sign? And I know some of you may be like, oh, I'm watching in Japan because I already left. So I know there's some of you out there. But for those of you still in the United States, like myself, I'm here in Baltimore. At what point do you decide that's the sign? Is it when you wrap the Gestapo cars, MRAPs in gold? Is that the point? You go, oh, this is This is bad. This is the time to go. Is it RFK Jr. saying that he wants to put digital ideas inside everybody? I haven't actually read up on how he plans to do that. I'm not sure if it's right up the back end. I'm not sure. And does he do it personally? Is he the one who sticks it up the back end, or how's that work? At what point do you say it's time to go? Because I feel like everybody's got their line, and just different people see the line at different places. Is it when people with guns are showing up at restaurants and arresting all the workers? Is that when you decide it's time to leave? Thank you, YepX, for donating over on Rumble. YepX, supporting the show. Yep says, Lee, can you reach out to Snow Himbo Big Mad Crab on Twitter to be a guest on their new show? I do not know of the words you say. Now, I realize I am an ancient man. I am an old man who does not keep up on the new shows, but I do not know the names of the things you've just told me. And then YepX wants to recommend the Marx Engels Lenin Institute. Well, thank you for supporting the show. I'm sorry I don't know about the podcast you just you mentioned. Anyway, Vilka Marie wants to know how old I am. It's a mystery, folks. It's a mystery. I'll tell you, though, the comedians I'm about to talk about and tell you my personal history with all of them. I don't think I've spoken to any of them in like 12 years. So if that tells you something about the fact that my many years coming up in the stand-up comedy world in New York City and across the country, I haven't spoken to these comedians in 12 years. Oh, I'm feeling old today. But all right. I mentioned Baltimore, and I also mentioned ICE. So both those things are in this next story. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who you all know about, has been rearrested by ICE after they finally freed him. So he's the one who was sent to the El Salvadoran prison wrongly, accidentally, or whatever. They claimed he was in a gang, even though he wasn't. They claimed he. They claimed he had, Trump in an interview famously said he had MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles, which he doesn't. It was the image that I think was passed around, which is what Trump was referring to, was faked. And Trump's not smart enough to think that an image could be fake. So, anyway, he finally is released, and I didn't even realize he's from Maryland, so that's why he was near Baltimore. And he had an appointment where he was where he had to check in with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Baltimore, and they immediately rearrested him, and they say they're going to kick him out of the country. So that's the kindness and compassion that this country now has for people. Especially when you do them wrong and ship them to one of the harshest prisons in the world for no reason. Also, in terms of black bagging people, and tell me if you can tell that this is not the Onion. Trump wants to, or no, it's happening, turning a former Japanese internment camp from World War II into the largest ICE detention facility. Army base used for World War II Japanese internment will be the nation's largest ICE detention center. For those of you who might be young, Japanese internment was one of the most disgusting, shameful moments in this country's history, filled with disgusting, shameful moments. It was when the United States during World War II decided that all Japanese humans are bad and evil, and therefore they should all be grabbed up, whether they have any connection to Japanese military, to Japan, to anything, no matter how long they've been here, and grab them up and send them into camps, essentially concentration camps. And they were released after World War II ended But guess what? In many or most cases, all of their stuff, their houses, etc., were stolen. So people, Japanese got grabbed up, sent to concentration camps. Well, look at that. There's a house available. Why not go grab that house? Nobody's living there. It's like a certain group of settlers. I can't remember which country does this. Certain group of land pillagers where they go and because people are driven away or arrested, they just steal their homes. Not sure which one it was. Israel. Can't remember. Maybe someone in the chat knows. Israel. So now Trump's turning what was a Japanese internment camp into the largest ICE detention facility. And guess what it's called? Guess the name of the place. Fort Bliss. Fort Bliss is where this is happening. Fort Bliss was a cog in the U.S. Japanese internment machine, said Brian Nia, a historian and content director at Dinsho, a nonprofit that chronicles Japanese-American internment. Nia's own grandfather was arrested the night of the Pearl Harbor attack and held in 6 different internment camps over the next 2 years. So, yeah, we're repeating our history and repeating some of our most shameful history. This reminds me of a certain, McCarthyism that has run rampant through this country that may have been used to create sanctions that shut down my last television show. And a certain McCarthyism that, in terms of recreating our most shameful moments, McCarthyism was one of them. And that McCarthyism has been used to, ban my original YouTube channel. That was my far larger channel, ban my Spotify podcast, ban my TikTok account. It's been great. Loving every minute, and suppressed me even to this day. So the United States is very good at learning from our past and then doing the worst shit again. Very good at it. Perhaps one of the best in the world. I would say top 2. Top 2 at learning. No, we're the best. Come on. Who am I kidding? At learning the most horrific shit we've done in the past and then doing it again. That's what we do. Okay, I can't go on to the next topic without, I can't go into the comedy world blowing up without at least showing you one clip of people standing up against this genocide. And in this case, it is a U.S. representative who gets loads of AIPAC money, and she was booed off the fucking stage. And it was beautiful. AIPAC funded Rep. Elise Stefanik, the representative. Here she is, trying to give a speech. Elise Stefanik. And I should say, for those of you listening to the podcast, by the way, folks, if you prefer podcasts, this is also a podcast, that they're going to show her getting booed. That's what they're showing right now. But then they're going to show clips of all of her endorsements of Israel. And then they're going to go back to her getting booed. So that's what you're hearing.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik booed today while attempting to address a crowd.
Protesters zeroed in on Stefanik's stance on the war in Gaza, barely letting her speak and forcing her to cut her speech early.
The American people proudly stand with Israel. As a lifelong admirer, supporter, and true friend of Israel,
stand with Israel, and we will vote on the Israel Security Supplemental Appropriations Act, a standalone $17.6 billion package which will provide life-saving funding and resources to stand with Israel.
Throughout my life, the importance of the state of Israel was clear.
Barely letting her speak and forcing her to cut her speech early.
It is truly humbling to be here to commemorate and honor the great John Zerlo. I'm going to turn this back to you, Mark. It's not being respectful. John Zerlo, I'm going to turn it back to you.
So I know if you listen to the podcast, it's hard to hear, but she literally gives up on her speech. She's there to honor somebody. I have no idea what. And she legit just gives up because they're not letting her speak because she's a fucking genocider. I mean, she endorses the genocide. And it is, she takes $1 million, over $1 million from AIPAC. But of course, whenever you see one of those numbers, remember, when you see $1 million from AIPAC, that's like the public stuff. That's not the amount of money AIPAC might have given to a super PAC that she has no connection to, that gets her reelected or goes after her opponent. So when you see those numbers and you're like, AIPAC giving her $1 million, that's just the money that goes direct to her. That's not the other money they spend to make sure she stays in office. Anyway, she's there to honor somebody and just gives up because they're literally not letting her speak. And why should she be allowed to speak? If you're going to deny a genocide, ignore a genocide, and support the state committing a genocide, then why should you get to speak? Why should you get to talk about anything? You're a fucking repulsive human being. That's what that is. Thank you. Move on. Move aside. So, had to give you that good news. All right. Let's get in to the comedy world blowing up and why I'm covering it. I think you guys, and for those of you who have like zero interest in, you watch me for political analysis, but you have zero interest in other comedians, stand-up comics, comedy podcasts, and you barely know who these people are, don't worry about it. I still think you'll find this interesting. I hang in there because just wait. I think you'll enjoy this, even though it's not normally what I do. Please, everybody, by the way, before I keep going, click thumbs up, click share, click subscribe. If you are already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I know it won't do much, but it might do something. Click the subscribe again and click the caret or whatever, and then move it to all alerts. Because if it says personalized, that means YouTube decides whether you should hear about my show. Now they're going to do that anyway, but maybe not as much. And of course, they're going to decide you don't need to hear about my show because they don't want to tell you about my show. So they will switch it to personalized sometimes, even when someone has it on all alerts. So you sometimes have to just check it once a month or something to see that it's on all alerts. Okay, that, and I really hope you'll join up for $6 a month at leecamp.net or patreon.com/leecamp and get all the perks there, because that is the only way I can keep doing these shows for you. Okay. Ratso in the comments says comedy world's blowing up. What I mean, I don't mean the comedy world's ending or something. I mean, there is a big kind of feud, rift, back and forth going on in some of the biggest names in stand-up comedy right now. And this doesn't normally happen. Comedians largely kind of don't want to go after each other, I'd say, a lot of the time, because there's some aspects of a brotherhood, I guess. Now, of course, I kind of stopped respecting any of that when these people were talking politics. So, Bill Maher as a comedian, it's like, I don't give a fuck. You are a pathetic pro-war sack of shit. I'm not going to be nice to you because you're a comedian. Or when The Daily Show, was defending Obama as president, or even after he was done being president, even though he was at war in 7 countries and murdering innocent people every single fucking day. It's like, I'm not gonna go easy on you because you're The Daily Show. Now, this is also part of the reason that my career is not what the career of these other comics. Like, they get to be on all the big TV shows. It's a different thing I do, but that is what it is. Anyway, so Mark Maron he has one of the biggest podcasts in the world. He's ending it, though. It ends in September, I think, but he's done it for like 16 years. I've listened to a lot of them, and I have a bit of a history with Mark Maron. When I was coming up as a comedian, he was one of the guys I looked up to. This is back when he was only doing stand-up. He didn't have a podcast. And he would talk about politics. He'd do stuff trashing George Bush and things like that. And back then I was naive enough, 2006 and stuff, to think that the Democrats were fighting for us. And I quickly learned by 2008, 2009, I learned they fucking aren't. They are part of the problem. They are capitalist pieces of shit. So I looked up to him, and then I introduced myself to him at a show, and then I saw him 1 or 2 other times. And then I was on a show with him in Los Angeles, where a bunch of comedians on the show. And he's sitting there, and I'm thinking like, oh, I've met this guy twice. He probably doesn't know me. And instead, he is sitting there and he yells, Camp, what you got on healthcare? So he clearly knew who I was, and he wanted to find out if I was talking about healthcare because he was worried I'd go on before him, do healthcare jokes, and then he'd look like he was hitting on the same topic. Anyway, I was like, I'm not talking about healthcare tonight. And I was like, why are you so angry, Mark? And he was like, I'm not angry. And I barely knew the guy. I was like, what's he? And then that was the last time I ever saw him. But I did, either I or someone I was working with would occasionally, once a year ask if I could come on his podcast. And back then his podcast was not as big. Having someone like me who he knows, who covers left-wing politics on, perfect, aligns perfectly with his type of guests. But I slowly figured out that Mark Maron hates me. He screamed at me once on Twitter. And really what it is that I kind of do what he wishes he could do or did do. He wanted to be like a Bill Hicksian. And I'm not saying I'm Bill Hicks, but I'm more in the vein of Bill Hicks than what Mark Maron ultimately did. Mark Maron ultimately got famous for doing podcast interviews that are not really political. And occasionally he'd even have politicians or media people on, and he would not push them very hard. Obama, his biggest guest ever was Obama, and he didn't ask him a single challenging question at all. And so he hates me for that. And, it is what it is. However, that being said, Mark Maron is now going on a bunch of other podcasts and kind of trashing what people call the Rogan sphere of comedians, which Joe Rogan is so big that he's a star maker now. If he has a comedian on multiple times, they can become known worldwide and make a career out of it. And so they now call it the Rogan sphere. He has this group of guys on, and they can sell out. Some of them can sell out stadiums. It's crazy. They're massive. I was on Joe Rogan's show twice, way back before it was, getting millions of views. It would still get, hundreds of thousands. So it wasn't small, but it was not the 10 million an episode type of thing. So I went on his show twice, and back then he was more left wing. He agreed with you're on there for 3 hours, and he agreed with almost every word I said. So, I don't remember everything we talked about, but I remember bringing up Standing Rock at the time. This was during Standing Rock. And I said, have you guys been talking a lot about Standing Rock on the show? And Joe Rogan said, no, what's Standing Rock? And so I basically educated him on Standing Rock, and he was open to it. He was like, oh yeah, that's fucked up. They're fucking up their land and stuff. And this is back when he supported Bernie Sanders. He supported Tulsi Gabbard before she became Repulsi Gabbard. And he's had this big anti-woke epiphany, the I hate anything left wing, I guess, epiphany. Endorsed Donald Trump. He famously said he was not going to have Donald Trump on his show and never would, and didn't want to help him. And then he had Donald Trump on his show and helped him and endorsed him. So that's what Joe Rogan is. And I performed he asked me to open for him a couple of times. But again, this is back when Joe Rogan played at comedy clubs, not Joe Rogan performing at stadiums. Anyway, that's enough background for the moment. And let me play some Mark Maron clips of what he's been saying. And I'll play it on like 1.1 or 1.2 because we don't need to sit through everything, but.
So it seems that Mark Maron has reignited his decade.
Oh, wait. That's the guy talking about it. Hold on.
But the thing with Joe,
Yeah.
is I don't know that we have a lot to talk about because of my idea of what he's done to comedy.
Sure.
And I don't think it's great. I think that it's tribalized. And I think that, he's created a sort of army of people that think they know comedy, but they only know a specific thing. And what they think is good is not necessarily good. It may be what they're like.
So it seems that Mark.
Okay. So he's saying he's created a group of comics that don't do very good comedy. And I think that's largely true. It's not true of like everybody on Joe Rogan's podcast, because he had me on and I'm fucking amazing. No, but he's had a million, Bill Burr on, he's had a million people on his podcast. So it's not like everybody on Joe Rogan's show is a shitty comic. It's this tiny group of like 6 to 10 or something comedians that Joe Rogan, they exist only because of Joe Rogan's podcast. And that group is who Mark Maron is talking about. and they largely do shitty comedy. I mean, it's not. You know, some people find it funny. So I've never liked the rubric of it's not funny. It's like, well, someone found it funny, you know. So it's not. I don't go off it's not funny. I just go off of whether it's hack, and I go off of whether it's it's not anything inventive, not anything unique. Whether it's punching down is a big aspect for me. Like if you have to fill your time punching down against people who like have the least in our society, it's just fucking pathetic, especially when you're millionaires. It's like the saddest thing you can do. And so when I see people doing that, if you're literally like a millionaire performing to a stadium and you've got to hit these trans people and you know hit sorry to do something hit again, you know, do anti-women jokes. It's like, dude, you're in control like of this shit. Like that's the only people you can hit at. It's just fucking pathetic. It's just sad. It's like little children stuff. And so I will give Mark Maron credit for this. I think he's saying something that's pretty accurate about how these comics behave. And don't worry, I'll get to more criticism of Mark Maron in a moment. But let's see. Here is another clip of Maron. This time he's on Howie Mandel's show. I imagine everyone knows who Howie Mandel is. Howie Mandel is famous for all of his hosting jobs, hosting what are they? Big Deal. Well, the Let's Make a Deal. The Big Deal. Hosting Big. Let's Make a Deal. Hosting all these other things. But his stand-up, Howie Mandel first got famous for his stand-up in the 80s, which in my view was like the worst stand-up could be. It was I guess if you had to define it, it'd be like silly stand-up. It's him jumping on a stage and literally one of his things was to put a latex glove over his head and inflate it with his nose. Like that's what he was doing. So yeah, someone in the chat says Gallagher was better. So if you like that, then fine. But it's just kind of funny that this is Mark Maron on Howie Mandel's podcast. And of course, the elephant in the room is that Howie Mandel was a hack of all hacks. But let's keep going.
Having an issue with people like Tony Hinchcliffe, who he's saying uses
Hold on, I should tell you who Tony Hinchcliffe is if you don't. A lot of you probably know. Kill Tony has become massive. It's one of the biggest YouTube shows. It is, in my mind, it's kind of pathetic. It's a group of comedians, and sometimes they'll have famous people on, having on amateur comedians and making fun of them for sucking, which it's like being a new comedian is really fucking hard. And then to like go on this stage so that a whole crowd can laugh at how much you suck. It's just gross. Like, I guess you can, like, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not like someone who's just come in and cancel it. It's just fucking pathetic is what it is. But there's an added layer to this. So there's the show, which is amateur comedians getting roasted. But then there's the idea that Tony Hinchcliffe, who organizes the whole thing, runs the whole thing, moderates the whole thing, occasionally, I guess he has a good roast line, meaning he insults someone well. But in general, garbage comic. Like has put out one comedy special on Netflix, but it was so bad that they've purged it from the internets. And from what I hear, you can't find it because it was so awful, and has never put out another comedy special. So anyway, that's who Tony Hinchcliffe. Oh, and also Tony Hinchcliffe had his moment in the sun when he almost cost Trump the election because someone on Trump's orbit hired him to open at Madison Square Garden like a week or less before the election. And Tony Hinchcliffe did a bunch of racist jokes, did the joke about there's a big patch of garbage floating around in the ocean. It's called Puerto Rico. And, you know, it's just racist jokes. And, you know, there's a audience for racist jokes. There are people who like racist jokes. It is what it is. That's the world we live in. Again, I don't think the guy should be put in prison for it, but if people want to dislike him for telling racist jokes, I think that's fine. You can dislike someone for telling racist jokes.
Profanity or just shock value comedy.
Hold on.
I've been seeing like Jeselnik having an issue with people like Tony Hinchcliffe, who he's saying uses profanity or just shock value comedy. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, at this point, it's lazy and sloppy and hackneyed. To be in a fucking club where, I'm walking down the hall at the comedy club, at the Comedy Store, and, in one room, someone's doing their bit about trans people, and then I get down the hall and there's someone on stage going, well, I guess I got to do my bit about trans people. Like, no, you don't. You don't. It's hack now. I mean, you guys got the freedom you wanted. You can now say whatever you want. They're defeated. Their rights have been denied. The policies that you guys encouraged, which are stupid material, are now policy. And now, half the people under the umbrella of anti-woke, we've lost a tremendous amount of democratic-leaning ideas and movements. So whether they...
I'm going to let him keep going in a second, but this is one of my favorite points which is that it's kind of like you won. Like these guys were part of the culture that was saying reelect Trump, real hatred for trans people. But it was much bigger than that, right? Tony Hinchcliffe is into racist jokes, and I think anti-women jokes are fairly common in these spheres. Mark Maron's point is like culturally, you've kind of won. For now, you've won. Mark Maron's point that like trans people are afraid to go outside or go use a bathroom. I think he's right. And I think it's kind of like, okay, you won. Now what? Now do you want to, you got to keep telling those jokes? There's also anti-immigrant jokes definitely is fairly common. I agree with him. It's like, at what point do you stop kicking people that are down? Now, I also think that was true before Trump got reelected. I don't think you got to kick people who are down, whether Trump's in office or not. Thank you, Mark Dansky, for donating over on Rumble. Man, the Rumble folks are killing it today. I don't know where your YouTube folks are with the super chats, but Rumble eating it up. The competition. Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for supporting the show. And I have now, there we go. Mark Dansky says Rant in E minor by Bill Hicks is miraculous. Thanks for mentioning him. Yes, I loved Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks died too young, age 32 in 1994. I didn't know of him back then, but he ultimately became really pivotal in my own, comedy journey. And I was lucky enough to have I interviewed his brother on my podcast, and in a separate interview, his brother was asked, is there anyone that's doing what Bill Hicks did? And he said, no, no one's exactly like Bill, but there are some that are there are a few that are have the same passion and the energy and are doing a great job. And he listed me and two other guys. I think one of them was Doug Stanhope. So I am proud that Bill Hicks' brother cared enough to say that. Okay, let's get back to Mark Maron on Howie Mandel.
You knew it or not, that's what they were spearheading. So now it's reality, and you want to still keep kicking them?
I don't know that the comedians have had that much power.
Are you fucking out of your mind?
No, I'm being serious.
Joe Rogan. I'm not gonna.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You can't separate. Like if the movement is like, we're being censored. No, you're not. You're not. There's no constitutional censorship issue with your free speech. You say things, and in a democratic shit show of an environment, like Twitter or whatever, there's cultural pushback. And I'm not saying that it was pretty bad in terms of people getting canceled and stuff, and I agree that was an issue, but that's a specific issue. To frame it as some sort of free speech problem was a misdirect. It wasn't a free speech problem. It was that people were getting cultural pushback.
Now, what's funny about this is, on one hand, I agree. Most of these people that claim to be canceled, it's actually not that they were canceled. It's that they got cultural pushback, which if you tell shitty jokes and you get cultural pushback, that happens. So I for the most part, I'm agreeing. What's hilarious here is if there's maybe one comedian or two, I mean, there aren't that many on the list, one or two that have, he said there's no government, right? He said not constitutional. No one's being put in prison. There's no government action on it. Actually, I lost my TV show because of government action. My TV show was banned and the entire company was banned because of US sanctions. My YouTube was banned around the world. If you go to youtube.com/redacted tonight, to this day, it will say banned in your country, no matter what country you're in. So if there were one comedian or, a few that Mark Maron could list that have actually had government and deplatforming pushback for speaking out, and in my case, for being left wing, it would be me. And yet Mark Maron won't speak to me, won't have me on my podcast, have me on his podcast. Joe Rogan won't speak to me anymore. All these other guys who claim to be canceled or censored or whatever, who are not really, they just have had some pushback. They've just had people complain. They won't speak to me. So hilariously, in this dialogue, there's very few of us who have actually been deplatformed for our words. And mine aren't even like being outwardly racist or talking about, endorsing Nazis or some shit, which there's a level of that where you could be deplatformed. Thank you so much, Nadia, for supporting the show and giving away, or you just became a member. Thank you so much for doing that. Really appreciate it. And yeah, really appreciate you supporting the show. But anyway, so it would be me, would be the one they should talk to, but none of them want to talk because most of them, are cowards on this front. They don't want to, they're afraid I might taint them. They're afraid I might make good points on their show. I don't know, but they're generally scared to have me on for the most part. Mad Matt in Chicago wants to know what I did to piss off Rogan. Be left wing. It's not that I pissed off Joe Rogan, although actually on Unredacted Tonight this coming Thursday, I actually trashed Joe Rogan. So now he'll have a reason to be pissed off. But no, I didn't do anything to piss him off. He used to be somewhat left wing on a bunch of stuff. And so he viewed me as a comedian that could come on and talk about those issues. But now that he's essentially right wing or libertarian, or I don't know what you want to call him, I'm like scary to him, right? I'm the wrong thing. Unless you're endorsing Trump or endorsing Trump adjacent, you're a scary guy to them. I also think that vice versa with Mark Maron. Mark Maron is a liberal. Like Mark Maron loves Obama and Biden and all these war criminals that pretend to be left wing when they're not. And it's because he doesn't really understand the system at play. So someone like me and his old buddy, I know for a fact Mark Maron used to know Chris Hedges fairly well. He won't have us on because we're real left wingers and we actually critique the empire in a legitimate way. And so that makes the faux left wingers or the liberals not look left wing. It makes them look right wing or ill-informed. And so there's a pretty good list of people who won't have me on because they know that it makes them look right wing when they think of themselves as liberal or left wing. Another example, not a comedian, but another example would be, Tom Hartman. Jesus. So I was on Tom Hartman's TV show many times. We were in the same office, right? RT America. I was friendly with him. He invited me to dinner once. I wasn't able to come, but invited me to dinner once. And yeah, I thought he was a good guy for a long time. But he ultimately got upset with me for endorsing or supporting Jill Stein. And at the end of the day, Tom Hartman endorses whatever Democrat is on the ballot. Tom Hartman does a lot of legitimately good reporting on certain issues. And he had me on his TV show many times as the left winger. But I think it made him uncomfortable to hear a real left winger because then all of a sudden the guy who's like kind of liberal suddenly appears to be pro-empire, pro-war criminals. I mean, if you're endorsing Obama and Biden and shit, you're endorsing war criminals. You're endorsing genociders. Like, that doesn't look good. It's not a good look when you pretend to be pretend to be left wing. Thank you, NDB, for supporting the show. Awesome. NDB donation over on Rumble. Again, Rumble killing it. Everyone else kind of struggling. Gonna be honest with you, but you know, we'll talk. We'll address this issue later in another episode. No, I love you all. Whether you're able to donate or not, I love you all. Okay, let's keep going here. I want to show a little more Mark Maron.
That is not a constitutional issue. No one was being put in jail for saying anything.
True, but people did lose their TV shows, which Mark Maron doesn't want to talk about. All right, as long as we're this deep into it, I should give this one last story on Mark Maron. Mark Maron had on the guy who created and ran the company called Stand Up Records, where my CD, yes, we used to have CDs when I was a kid, where my comedy album was on, Stand Up Records. To this day, you can, if you go download my comedy albums, the ones that are just audio, there's 2 of them. It's from Stand Up Records. So he had on the guy that heads that. And they used to have everybody. I mean, I don't know if all of them are still with it, but they used to have Doug Stanhope, Lewis Black, all these awesome comics. Mark Maron has him on, and he starts going. Mark Maron's interviewing him and asking him about where, you know, all these great comics you have, and he starts going down the list, like alphabetically, listing every comic on Stand Up Records. Gets to my name, says like the L in Lee Camp, and legit stops himself mid-word. And goes, Mark Maron does, and goes, I'm not going to list them all, but yeah, you got a lot of great comics. And I was like, wow, I have no idea how you could dislike me. We had 3 interactions with each other. How could you dislike me so much you can't say my name? Also, Mark Maron's podcast, and many of the episodes have been him having comedians that he's had problems with in the past, and he gets, it's like an AA meeting. He gets past his issues with them. So many of his episodes are like, yeah, I used to have a problem with you. We fought it out, you know, once. He actually had Joe Rogan on once years ago and said, I used to have a problem with you. Now he still does. And so it's like the theme of some of his episodes are like, let's me get past my issues with whatever comedian. And yet apparently his issue is so deep with me. Can't do that. Can't say my name. Thank you, Natalie Williams, for supporting the show. Did I hear about the text from the Constitution dealing with habeas corpus and tariffs disappearing online recently? Story on TruthStream Media. No, I need to look that one up. I did know that the Trump administration legit doesn't know what habeas corpus is. Like they were asked about it and they legit, it's like, it's your right to go through the process, to like have the process rather than just grabbed up, black bagged and sent out of the country. And they either don't know what it was or don't want to pretend they don't know what it was. It's fucking pathetic. But anyway. Okay, let's keep going. And Firepower, thank you. Fireflower has changed her name. Thank you for supporting the show. Mentions that doesn't have enough funding to join Means TV, but supports me on locals. And that's fine. I don't expect everybody to do everything. And I understand that. Okay. A few more seconds.
That's a free speech issue. But my problem is you're going to start talking about anti-woke, and that's going to be your point of view. That's going to be your ideological, grounding for what you do. Okay, that's fine. But why does it have to be the same 4 fucking things? It's like they talk about the same shit. And I don't know a better definition of hack. I mean, after a certain point, it's like, what juice does the word retard really have? How much shit do you have to give trans people? What is your big problem with gay people? What's your big problem with women? It's like, what is this? The fucking 80s again?
Yeah. I think those are all good points. And I also just find it hilarious that he goes, at what point is it fucking hack? He's sitting in front of one of the biggest hacks to ever exist in the comedy world. Howie Mandel. Okay, all good points, but I also want to show you, I told you it's going to be a little in-depth segment here. I also want to show you some of the reaction to this, and I have some history with almost all of these guys. I do not have history with one of the main guys, which is Tony Hinchcliffe. I've never met that lunatic, but yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, he's not really a comedian. He's kind of like a mean talk show host that has a YouTube show where amateur comedians get made fun of for sucking. And and he thinks he's like the greatest comedian to ever live, but he's not a comedian really. He's just a mean talk show host. So on the screen right now, two guys I knew back in my New York days, Dave Smith and Big J Okerson. I knew Big J much better. Big J and I were on a ton of shows together in New York. He was also in my acting class when in my 20s when I thought I might do some acting, and was in one Law and Order SVU and decided I don't really like saying other people's words. So I want to say my own words. Thank you, Mark Dansky, again for donating over on Rumble. Much love. But I will say, Big J Okerson, funny dude. I don't know. I can't speak to all of the things he's said over the past 12 years. So if you find some clip of something being said that I wouldn't approve of, fine. I'm just saying, Big J, very funny comic.
Very cool. Tony, what's going on? Do you not like Mark Maron? Does he not like you? What was that? What was that all about?
Whoa, just dropping a big one there. I mean,
is there a beef with you and Mark Maron?
I mean, I don't ever acknowledge these guys, these mentally ill people, when they, go online and start talking about me.
So Tony Hinchcliffe is the douche in the sunglasses, because when you're full douche, you have to wear sunglasses. One of the greatest comics, Dave Attell, sitting in between them. Dave Attell and I were on a bunch of shows in New York. When you're on shows with 10 other comics. I probably only had a handful of conversations with him, but he did say some very nice things about my comedy. Joe DeRosa, is the next guy on at that table. I was friendly with him in New York. Another very funny comic.
Me and my friends.
And then this, I'm not going to spend much time on this. I do not know this guy, Brendan Schaub, former MMA fighter. Tried to become a stand-up comic, put out a special that everyone agrees is one of the worst comedy specials to ever exist. But it all happened because of Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan told this MMA fighter that he should do stand-up comedy, and it was a fucking disaster. And anyway.
Mark's a fossil. So his demo's 45 to 77.
No.
Listen, Maron's a soft. Jesselnick's different than Mark. I like Jesselnick. Jesselnick's different than Mark.
Anyway, Brendan Schaub, one of the worst comedians to ever. I don't even know if he still does stand-up because everyone has made fun of him so much that he's kind of, I think, backed down. But okay, let me show another clip from this panel of comics talking about this.
What's his beef with you?
I mean, look, man, the couple guys out of LA that now, are at the Comedy Store that have talked shit when they have, their once every 3 or 4 years special that they do when they come out like a groundhog and do something that people might see.
Ooh.
Their new thing is like
suck on that, Pauly Shore. I read between the lines.
And Maron, Jeselnik, they all are on multiple episodes of Kill Tony. They've always smiled right to my face.
Tony's.
They all fancy enough, coincidentally, never leave avails when they know I'm going to LA.
Wow.
They're never around.
Wait, are they? Jeselnik also came at Kill Tony?
Yeah, Jeselnik. But
they've both done multiple appearances on Kill Tony, all pre-pandemic when we were in LA. And when they want to push things, they.
No, but I'm asking more like, did he recently say something about Kill Tony?
Yeah, I think Jeselnik's taking a bunch of shots, right?
When he had a special to promote. Now he's going to be gone for a few years. And, while I put out 2.5 hours of comedy content every week.
So hilariously, this idiot, Tony Hinchcliffe, says he puts out 2.5 hours of comedy content every week. He puts out 2.5 hours of his show, Trashing Amateur Comedians. Some people on his panel on that show are funny. He rarely is. But that's not you putting out 2.5 hours. Like, you either have to have a TV show that is a comedy show, like Unredacted Tonight or Redacted Tonight, or put out comedy specials. I've put out many comedy specials to be counted as putting out comedy content. Like, that's comedy content. Tony Hinchcliffe has put out one special that apparently was so bad they've now wiped it from the internet, and I think he's afraid to put out another one. So it's it's kind of hilarious to hear him. That's his defense, is I put out lots of comedy content. Okay, so now I want to, now I want to get to one last criticism of Mark Maron, even though I largely endorse his crusade here to call out the Joe Rogan sphere for largely being comedy garbage and for not really supporting like things that could be positive in the world. I don't like, is it all just got to be you're trashing just each other and those who are below you? And it's just so childish and so pathetic. And this is also part of why I was always on the outside of these realms. Like I knew these guys in New York. Dave Attell is kind of a separate thing, but some of these guys, and I was always kind of on the outside because my stuff was always hitting up. It continues to be, and I just never got into the let's trash each other, let's insult each other, let's trash a lot of these guys, not necessarily those guys on the panel, but a lot of these various types of comedians that are like this. They do tons of crowd work, and it's a lot of it is trashing people in the crowd, And I used to hate being like, whenever I was on these shows, it's always tons of crowd work, but the crowd work I always found. It's just like, okay, so you found a couple and you insulted the guy for being uglier than the woman. Well, who knows? Maybe that'll fuck up. Maybe that'll fuck up their relationship. Like, who knows how it'll end up when they leave here? Like, it's just gross. Like, it's why people stop coming to comedy clubs. I think, like, I know there's a comedy boom now, and a lot of people have restarted going to comedy clubs, but there was a period there where people weren't, because you walk in and you sit down and some guy on stage is like, fucking, what's that haircut, fucking loser? And it's like, really? We can't actually have our own thoughts, our own interesting just comedy. Like, it's got to be making fun of the guy who's a little short in the front row. Like, it's just pathetic again. Anyway, but I also want to make, again, my criticism of Mark Maron known. And so here's a clip from his most recent special, Mark Maron's, that I both agree with, and it's shocking he doesn't understand the hypocrisy of it. So let's see that.
I think if Hitler were alive today, he'd probably appear on Theo Vaughn's podcast. And Theo would be like, see, y'all did a lot of meth, right? I mean, all the Nazis were all fucked up on meth, right, Hitler? That shit'll make you crazy, dog. I did some meth once. I was up for 3 days, and then I ate a live bird. No shit, Hitler, a live bird, bro. Hey, Hitler, you probably didn't even hate the Jews. That was just the meth making you crazy, dog.
So, okay, so, I mean, you can decide whether it's funny or not. That's not really my point. Theo Vaughn now has one of the biggest podcasts in, I guess, America, maybe in the world. And the issue with Theo Vaughn, and Theo Vaughn he's done some things recently. He's come out against, by the way, he's one of the ones I haven't known. I've never known Theo Vaughn, but he came out against Gaza. And even though he doesn't cover politics, he put out a video just of him talking to camera saying that the genocide in Gaza is wrong. Don't think he used the word genocide, but that's not most of what he does. Most of what he does is have on these guests and just, it's all positive, right? There's never a negative word spoken. It could be guests you agree with, and at times, and it could be Donald Trump. He had on Donald Trump and all positive. Has on a lot of people like that, where it's like, no matter who he has on, it's all positive. Now, Mark Maron's point in that joke is that Theo Vaughn could have on Hitler and it would still all be positive. It would all be positive, funny, you're doing the best you can. We're just brothers. It helps to humanize these absolute non-humans, absolute soul-sucking pieces of shit. And that's what Joe Rogan does now with, not just with Donald Trump, but with billionaires, which are the richest people in the world. Joe Rogan helps humanize Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, these absolute reptilians. they're absolute reptilian. I was going to say humans, but let's just say reptiles. And that's what he does for the culture. So that's what Mark Maron's criticizing. Now, the breathtaking hypocrisy is that I could have done this same joke about Mark Maron back when he had on Obama in Obama's final year and did not ask a single pressing question at all. This is the man behind the surge in Afghanistan that killed God knows how many innocent civilians. This is the man that oversaw the world's largest prison state in the world. This is the man that bombed in 7 countries and said he was good at killing people. This is the man that assassinated a U.S. citizen with a drone bomb. This is the man that oversaw a fucking horror show, not to mention the 500,000 500,000 people around the world dying from U.S. sanctions every year. That is who Mark Maron had in his garage, because literally Obama flew out to his garage where Mark Maron tapes his show, sat in his garage and did the interview with Mark Maron, had him on for an hour for a casual chit chat. Never asked a pressing question, never a difficult question. One of the questions I recall was essentially, you get a lot of hate online and stuff. How do you handle it? The biggest softball interview you could ever imagine. So Mark Maron is the problem in the same way Theo Von is. It's just Mark Maron thinks that only Donald Trump is a problem. Mark Maron thought that the unprecedented number of immigrants rounded up and shipped out of this country under Biden was not a problem worth ever mentioning. I have not heard every podcast Mark Maron's put out. I can guarantee you he never mentioned that Joe Biden had the record for most immigrants deported until Trump in this second term is trying to break that and will break that record. So it's the hypocrisy is just unfathomable. And yeah, it frustrates me. And of course, none of these people would talk to me. Mark Maron won't have me on. Joe Rogan won't have me on anymore. But I'm actually not I'm annoyed by the Maron thing, because Maron was someone I looked up to like years ago, back when I was a little more naive about this world. But I'm not bitter about not being on Rogan, because I found it a little repulsive when I was in there, even though he was more left wing back then, because I walk in there and the first thing they hit record, first thing he does is like a 15-minute chat on how on Fox News you can see up the girls' skirts, and it's really awesome. And I didn't want to just shit all over the interview, so I wasn't like, dude, what the fuck? Maybe I should have been. But I kind of sit there quietly and, awkwardly chuckle while he and his co-producer or whatever just pulled up photos of Fox News girls. And I was like, okay, whatever. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that deep dive into what the fuck's going on with the comedy world. I think I'm one of the few that has both the unique perspective of having known at some point almost everyone in that conversation, but also the unique perspective of agreeing with Mark Maron and also thinking Mark Maron's a fucking hypocrite for doing the same shit as he's criticizing. Okay. You guys are the best. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. If you haven't watched the latest Unredacted, you're going to like it. Also, this kind of it really is by coincidence. I didn't mean to go after Rogan twice in 1 week, but on this upcoming episode of Unredacted tonight, I tear apart Joe Rogan for a completely unrelated issue. For an issue I have not mentioned in this segment. I do these live streams Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You just have to show up, put it in your calendar, because you will not get alerts. And I will see you Wednesday, and I will not be able to do the live stream Friday, but I normally do. And there is a new Unredacted coming out Thursday. All right. Keep fighting, folks.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in so such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Haha.